Все ми в ефірі.
Дякую. Добрий день.
Good day.
Доброго дня, шановні члени конкурсу.
Good day, dear Commission members, dear participants. We continue the 9th meeting of the Commission, the third stage of the competition for administrative positions in the SAPO. We have interviews regarding the integrity criterion. So today we have invited Mr. Tymoshenko Konstantin, Filonenko Taras, and Mr. Formagay Alexander. I would like to announce to the Commission members that we have an application from Mr. Formagay. He is asking us to postpone his interview because he is ill. So the first question, we need to vote to postpone the interview with Mr. Formagay Alexander to the 5th of July, if you don't mind. So please vote. We are voting to postpone interview with Mr. Formagay to the 5th of July. Unanimous decision. We have quorum today. So we have decided to postpone the interview with Mr. Formagay. Now we continue our work. Today we have Maxim Petrovich Tymoshenko. I will announce the Commission members today. Андрій Гуджал, Катерина Коваль, Олена Бусол, Романюк Богдан, В'ячеслав Навроцький, Thomas Firestone, and Roman Kuibida. Dear Commission members, if you have self-recusals according to regulations, please let us know. Dear Maxim Petrovich, do you have any recusals to Commission members? No recusals from the candidate.
Ще раз нагадую, Максим Петрович.
So I would like to remind you, Maxim Petrovich, you have passed 2 stages and you have been invited to the 3rd stage. During the meeting, we are evaluating the correspondence to the integrity criteria, income and expenses, lifestyle, professional ethics, political neutrality, other possible violations of integrity. I hope you know our regulations and methodology. We have materials gathered by the Commission. I will announce your biography. Tymoshenko Maxim, born in 1981, never been brought to criminal responsibility, never been brought to administrative responsibility for corruption violations. Graduated Kyiv National University of Taras Shevchenko, used to work starting from 2004 until 2006, National Agricultural Company Ukragro-Leasing, the legal counsel for agreement and claims of the legal department, had legal counsel for court resolutions and bankruptcies, legal counsel for organization of fulfillment of court decision and legal protection, had legal counsel of the legal department for court claims in the Ukragro-Leasing Company. Starting from year 10 until 11, Mirgorod Interregional Prosecutor's Office, Senior Assistant to the Prosecutor, 2012-2013, Investigator of the Prosecutor's Office. In the year 2012, until in the Prosecutor's Office of Sumy region, Senior Prosecutor of the Prosecutor's Office of Sumy region, later Prosecutor's Office of Zhovkva district in Lviv region, 2013, Prosecutor's Office of Shevchenkiv district of the city of Lviv, Prosecutor's Office of the city of Lviv, Prosecutor in the Prosecutor's Office of the city of Lviv, Prosecutor's Office of Lviv region, head of the department. I will try to be brief. Later, Prosecutor's Office of Lviv region, head prosecutor of the department, 2015. Prosecutor's Office of Kiev, prosecutor, late Kyiv Local Prosecutor's Office number 4, head of the Prosecutor's Office, 2020 until now, Kyiv Local Prosecutor's Office number 4, prosecutor. If you have any additional information to your biography, when something has changed, yes, I have changes. I have been appointed as head of the Svetoshin Prosecutor's Office of the city of Kyiv. Maxim Petrovich, do you have any additional information, maybe about disciplinary penalties or commendations or bonuses? I'm sorry for technical problems. We have a technical issue with the camera.
А давно не показується?
Тільки що.
Не можна цю камеру ближче до кандидата поставити, щоб було видно?
Can we put the camera closer to the candidate?
Зараз спробуйте, Вячеслав Олександрович.
Right now, we shall try. So, Olena Busol is saying in the chat that we have no quorum.
Зараз налаштуємо.
Right now, we are going to resolve the technical issue.
Ми попросимо вас мету участі в конкурсі.
So please tell us about your motivation to participate in the competition.
Олена Юріївна, і ми періодично будемо
Olena
просити.
Yurievna, we will periodically ask you, because we need to turn on the air conditioner because it's hot in the room.
Все.
Ви що зупиняли трансляцію? Таким чином, колеги, ми
Katerina Koval. Therefore, dear colleagues, so the camera is working. Let us continue. Dear Maxim Petrovich, please tell about your motivation. According to Transparency International, Ukraine is at the 111th place, probably for the previous year. Every year, the level of Ukraine is rising, but Belarus is on 63 place. We have a lot of anti-corruption agencies, NABU, SAPO, ARMA, and others. So this allowed to improve the position of Ukraine. And in March, according to the sociological research, it shows that the level of trust of the society to the anti-corruption bodies is lower compared to the police. My aim is to raise the work of the SAPO to the necessary level to have the trust of the society. I believe that my experience, which I gained at all the levels in the prosecutor's offices, will allow me to do this. During my work in the prosecutor's office and being in the administrative positions in the prosecutor's offices, we have referred to court a number of corruption cases. And when I was an officer, we referred a lot of cases regarding head of the departments in the regional administrations. We referred accusations against heads of state enterprises. As for district prosecutors' offices, of course, they cannot compete with NABU and SAPO. In order to achieve this objective, we need to pull our sleeves and get on with work. We shouldn't be accusing each other for drawbacks, but do a lot of work. As for the disciplinary responsibility or criminal responsibility, I have never been brought to criminal responsibility, neither to disciplinary responsibility or to administrative responsibility regarding corruption. As for commandments, I don't have any state awards, but I have letters of gratitude from the Верховна Рада and from the regional prosecutor's office. Thank you, Maxim Petrovich. We have your profile. We have been studying your information. You have got the questionnaire. We have materials of the special background checks from NABU, from NAPC. You have passed the polygraph tests. You have answered the questions. We have studied the materials. We have some petitions from the civic organizations, but maybe we will have some additional questions. So one of the questions is, I would like to ask you, as it is, because it is in the mass media, there is a case that you were given by the prosecutor general, Mr. Lutsenko, regarding France Split company. Can you explain about this case? Yes, I used to work as head of the Kyiv local prosecutor's office number 4 in the Dniprovsky district. So we had a meeting in Zhytomyr, and among the questions raised by the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, and there was an issue of possible pressure against business regarding the company Fanplit. So its operations consist in, they do different wood products, wooden boards, and accordingly the waste was burned. Wooden waste was burnt in their boilers, but they had to work using gas. So there were a lot of complaints from business ombudsman to the Prosecutor General's office regarding possible pressure on the business. When the Prosecutor General was looking into the question, there was environmental expertise. So it was completed probably in the year 19. There were high exhausts into the air due to the work of the plant, but the expertise could not prove that those exhausts could be threatening to health of people. And the ecological inspectorate applied to the court to revoke the license of the company. It was satisfied in the first instance, but we didn't find any reasons to bring people to criminal responsibility. What was the end? What was the result of the case? Because sometimes prosecutors start a case, but then they pay no attention later. Response: the case was closed because of absence of crime. As for the pressuring, there was no pressure. So if a petition was filed to arrest one of the 4 incinerators which used the waste. Katerina Koval, I will have several questions, but regarding the declaring, I would like to ask you, in the year 14, you didn't indicate your assets where you used to live. I can see in your passport. So in the year 14, you didn't declare your place of residence. Later, you did not declare changes, significant changes in your assets because you bought a Volkswagen Touareg. So could you explain more about declaring the assets and your place of residence? In the year 14, I used to live in Lviv. Katerina Koval, look, in the profile, we have several instances, several pieces of information that there were periods when you did not declare some things. So you were moving from one town to another, right? Response, according to my biography, I changed my place of work and I moved from time to time. There was a problem in Lviv to rent an apartment because the city is very old. First of all, I was amazed by those apartments that were leased because the apartments were very old. They had old fireplaces. That's why I changed my place of residence several times. As for Tuareg, I bought it on December 26, 2020. At that time, this demand to declare significant changes was ruled unconstitutional by the Constitutional Court, and on December 29, an APC stated that such things should have been declared. But when I was filing my declaration to participate in this competition, this norm was in force. Katerina Koval. Also, we have information that several times there were complaints regarding the prosecutor to the qualification commission of the prosecutors. I would like to ask you, have you ever violated the rights and authorities of lawyers and guarantees? Response, I know there was one claim regarding the company Atlanta Investment. There was a proceeding regarding the residential development in the Dniprovsky district, but the disciplinary commission refused to open a disciplinary proceeding. I was asked about the same issue during my attestation. Then I raised this question again. So the lawyer applied and stated in the application that the materials of seizure were lost, while in fact those materials were located in the police. Katerina Koval, how were you able, while being a prosecutor, how were you able to make an oath of a lawyer? Response, I took a leave for one day in order to take an oath of a lawyer. I was not on service at that particular day. I believe that these are two sides of the same coin. This is the same access to the legal work. And there was a decision by the Supreme Court recently. I also analyzed information I also found out information about the judges. Some of the judges also have an oath of a lawyer. Yes, Katerina Koval. Yes, before the year 2012, well, it has never been forbidden to take the exams, but how were you able to do the training? Because you have to train for 6 months. Who was your training? Who was your mentor during the training? Response, I don't remember exactly the surname. It's written somewhere. As for my internship, I was studying and making procedural documents, but as they do it in everyday work. As for the court sessions, I did not visit any court sessions because as head of the prosecutor's office, I was supporting some of the proceedings in different cases. And within the framework of controlling the subordinated prosecutors, I started the practice that me and my deputies, once a week, we go to court decisions. We look how our prosecutors act during the court sessions, and then discuss it and debrief it in the prosecutor's office. Katerina Koval. Yes, we have been preparing amendments to our law on the work of lawyers. We were offering to the legislators to make amendments in the law regarding the training and internship for prosecutors and for judges. Well, it's not so easy, because we cannot oblige a judge of a constitutional court or of Supreme Court, former judge, to do the training again because they have a lot of experience. But I'm interested how could active prosecutor be studying as a lawyer and take an oath. So please, if you have any questions, please ask.
До нас долучився Євген Юрійович.
We have also Mr. Sobol.
Самовідводи чи відводи.
If you have any self-recusals or recusals,
Будь ласка, якщо
no.
є
So, dear commission members, ask your questions if you have, besides the questionnaire.
Євген Юрійович, у вас є запитання?
Mr. Sobol, do you have a question? A question from Mr. Sobol. During your work, have you ever visited other countries, and what was the nature of your trips abroad? Do you have any relatives abroad? Response. As my aunt lives abroad, she has been living in Italy for more than 20 years. I don't have, unfortunately, I don't have connections. I used to visit other countries for touristic purposes.
Є ще запитання, Євген Юрійович?
Any other questions, please, Yevgen? No, that's good. Thomas, please. Thomas, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Timoshenko. I understand there was a newspaper article related to your involvement in a particular case involving cognac, a businessman who was producing cognac and vodka. And the article contains what purports to be a statement from a tax police operational investigator saying that you received $75,000 from the businessman who was being prosecuted. Do I understand, have I understood that article correctly, one? And if so, what is your response to those accusations?
Я пам'ятаю цю статтю, вона, здається,
I
називається
remember this article. This was about Toyotas. It was in the year 17 about Toyotas for prosecutors. As we have been doing supervision on the fiscal service officers regarding Articles 204. We did searches in Odessa region and we seized fake alcohol. During the pretrial investigation between the procedural supervisor and the suspect, there was a plea agreement. So there was a fine within the sanction of the article, and the case was sent to the court. The court approved the decision. As for the bribe of $75,000, I don't know where this article appeared. The article contains a report. I don't know the operative exactly. I don't remember about the operative. At the same time, if a lawyer can read this report, a lawyer can understand that this was written by a simple journalist that has nothing to do with legal profession. This article didn't make any consequences. No disciplinary proceeding was started or criminal proceeding was not started. I think that this was a paid article and I don't know what it is connected with. This was just a usual case. Navrotsky, did you file a court claim against this article, against this publication? No, I didn't file any claim. There was only 2 likes beneath this article on the website.
А це одна така була глядачка?
Katerina Koval, was this the only article regarding, as far as I understand, there are a lot of paid articles against prosecutors. There was. So was this the only case? Response, I will make a fresh example about what we are doing now. In the beginning of April, in Dnipropetrovsk, we were working on a case on the narco laboratory. We seized methamphetamine, 20 kilograms. We detained 20 persons. 10 persons, and now we are pressurized by means of yellow press, which is, I believe, it is paid by the suspects. When we wanted to continue the detainment, somebody sent money to the prosecutor's account. But this operative reported to me about this case. We filed a report according to the fact of trying to pressure an officer of the prosecutor's office and illegal benefit. So we sent the information to the prosecutor's office of another district of the city in order to avoid conflict interest. So this is our usual tactics if somebody is trying to tarnish us. So they are trying just to recuse the prosecutor. I will tell you even more. When we were deciding on the restraint, on the measure of restraint, the lawyer says that they want to recuse a prosecutor, and then they show us that they send the money to our bank account too. So the prosecutor just goes to his or her office. So the lawyer knew that somebody has sent some money to the prosecutor's card. So this was their combination in order to remove the prosecutor. Thank you. Any other questions? Thomas, please.
Yes, I had one more question about the article. It appears that it identifies the tax operational investigator who made this statement that you had taken $75,000. Do you know if he was ever prosecuted or subject to disciplinary action for making a false statement about you?
Рапорт був підписаний.
The report was signed by a fake person. It was a fake person because in the tax service, this person could not be found in the tax service. So this is a fake person. So the surname was Skorina. He was the head of the operative department. But a person who allegedly signed this report, this is a fake person. So it was not signed. It was just a description of what happened, and there was indicated the job position and the surname, but this person could not be found, and I believe he is fake. This is a fake person. Thank you. Any other questions, please? Please. Roman has a question. Roman Koibida. Please tell us, in 2015, you have declared a big amount of cash. So you told that this was a result of the sale of 2 apartments and a land plot. Yes. We had some other sales, but I didn't preserve the documents. So can you explain, where did you get those 2 apartments and a land plot? Response. As for the land plot, I have the documents. There were up to 10 land plots, in fact. If you remember, after the year 3 and the year 8, there was a big growth of prices for the real estate. So we were looking for land plots in Poltava region, and in half a year, we tried to sell them. As for the apartments, the first apartment that we started with, so my parents had 2 houses. So they sold one of them in the year 99. So they bought a first apartment, was bought for $23,000 or $24,000, and in and in 18 months, its price was almost 100,000. So where did you get them? So I sold the first apartment. So it was bought for 24 and sold for 100,000. So the second, then we bought the second apartment. Then the price grew and we sold it again. And as for the land plots, we bought it lower than 10,000 and then sold them for more expensive, up to 60,000. My mother's parents had two houses, so they sold one of the houses and then they bought the first apartment. So then we sold the first apartment and bought the second one. Roman.
Дивіться, перша була реалізована за 90, щоб не повторити, просто я.
Look, the first one was sold at 95,000. The second one was sold at the price of bought at the price 50, sold for the price 75,000, and that's how we accumulated these funds. So this second apartment, you bought it after you sold the first one, right? Yeah, it was cost something about 50,000, as the first one was sold at the price almost 100,000. You can find the amount of the selling in the documents. In general, that amount you can count 205,000. It's less, right, than the cost of the apartment. As you sold one apartment, after that you bought another one, after that you sold it again. We can calculate 95 minus 45, 50,000. It was sold at the price 76,000. Plus 76, we have 136, and the plot of land, 64, I guess. That's 200,000 total. While I was working, I was making money, but in hryvnia, right? How did you happen that you sold all the apartments and now you're without housing and you're renting the housing? I have no intention to buy an apartment. It was like an investment. It was bought for plus minus 30,000. Now it costs 60,000. And to buy an apartment, to waste money on renovation, it has no sense for me. For me, rented property is much more cheaper. How much do you pay for rent? 11,000 hryvnia. Have you seen articles on you? Yes, I did. Well, did you try to appeal them or something? No, I do not like these things. How would you explain that in 2018? You had 13,500 hryvnia. 2018 then, my income was 472,000. Savings 672,000 less, 1,150,000. I don't know where did you take that 13,000, but even after paying the rent, there are 10,000. And the ones that you bought in the 2016, 900,000 hryvnia. If you take it from other amounts,
Мільйон 144 загалом дохід.
1,104,000
Мінус оренда квартири і мінус придбання майнового.
minus apartment rent, minus ownership rights, more than 400,000 left. For living, that's without paying rent, just for living. And what about taxes? What tax do you mean? I do not remember that. In your declaration, I took it from the declarations. There are 400,000 in declarations, but if we in declarations it is 472,000 hryvnia. Well, 400,000. Did you have any trips abroad in 2018? Yeah, there were 3 trips. They were paid in 2017, but we couldn't go. There were business trips. I just couldn't find time for them. So they didn't happen. They were paid in 2017, but in 2017 we didn't go anywhere and they were transferred to 2018. Could you please tell me what kind of trips? All of them were tourism. In March, Berlin. In May, Paris. And the third one, I think Turkey, but I'm not sure. How much did you spend for the living and for the flight? They were paid in 2017 and breakfasts were included in hotel usually. It was a family trip. Me and my wife. Without kids? Yeah, without kids to have less fuss. And your income in 2017? I do not know why the conclusions like that were made in 2019, for instance, but I calculated 40-50,000 hryvnia per month, even after all taxes. Okay, there was a issue in 2017. I was trying to explain your purchases. In 2017, it was the same. I mean, where is the mistake in all these calculations? There is no mistake. And could you please explain one more time how did you transfer your trips for a year? If you paid for them and after them you don't go, but prices changes. I'm sorry, during COVID, no, it was not COVID that time. I just know that due to COVID, a lot of trips were transferred. 2017, 2018, I'm asking. Okay, then. You cannot say that, right? Well, I was trying to find it out, but I didn't find. How much did you pay? How much did you spend a month for living in 2017, 2018? 8,000-9,000 hryvnia, including catering, including food. Well, you know, in our country, official salary, official minimum wage is very small, but I don't understand why such conclusions were made. What did you use? I haven't heard what was used. My wife is doing something with the house, with garden. I have one car as a head of SBU, and when Toyota was sold at the end of the year, the mileage was 50,000, and everyone was surprised. I cannot believe that it's possible to spend just 8,000 a month with travel. But they were paid last year. Could you confirm this amount, please? Well, I can try to look for them.
Чи можете ви підтвердити, що договори щодо...
Could you please confirm these contracts for your foreign trips for 2018 were paid in 2017? No, I do not keep the agreements. Maybe I can try to ask some members of my family. We just have requests from civil society organizations so that I do not save them. Thank you. That's all from me. Any other questions, colleagues? No more questions? Yevgen, are you with us? Yevgen Yurievich. Yevgen Yurievich told before that he's going to experience poor connection. Any other questions, colleagues? If there are no questions, Maxim Petrovich, could you please wait while we are going to discuss it? Thank you. Could you please take all the original documents? As there is a huge pile of them. Any comments, proposals, dear colleagues? Yes, Vyacheslav. Colleagues, a few moments, and I have doubts on the integrity of the candidate. First one, internship for Louis activities. He explained that on a day of exam, he took 1 day leave, but we are talking about 6 months of internship, not just 1 day. Second, that he was blamed in disintegral behavior. For me, it's not a proof that this blaming were grounded or truthful, but he didn't take any actions to appeal this information. For a few times, he said, "What for?" to appeal against the newspapers. Also, she said that I'm not going to do it when he was asked about another publication. Also, for a few times, candidate told that he is not keeping documents. Well, probably he doesn't, but while preparing for an interview, he needs to confirm his explanations. And at last, preparation for interview. And this blaming that his way of life doesn't correspond to his income. He said that there is some mistaken calculations. I was trying to get it, but I didn't. That's my impression from today's interview. Thank you. I have very similar impressions. I'm surprised that candidate even didn't try to get ready for this interview to prove that the publications were wrong, or, to try to prove how these 3 trips were paid. Candidates' explanations were not solid at all, and correspondence of his way of life to his income, to the declaration, and together with the data from polygraph. All this information cannot be supported. Now, colleagues, I'm looking at candidate file at the moment, information about these trips, and can we require for the contracts for them. If candidate is referring that they were paid 1 year ago, then this what should be proved. But, we can transfer the interview and ask for the evidence as we didn't ask it in the questionnaire. I need to understand how we are going to ground the protocol of the decision as we didn't require it before. All those agreements, and we didn't ask anyone to do it. That's why I need to understand. You mean publications or requests from civil society organizations? Civil society organizations provided this information. Also, we can find it in publications. Candidate didn't try to explain us during the interview. Well, he tried, but, he failed, I think. Take into consideration that every trip requires not just funds for living and flight, but also other things. And also candidate didn't prove in any way that all these expenses were reasonable. Well, I cannot calculate it in the same way as civil society organizations, all payments in hryvnia, expenses and incomes. Civil society organizations calculated it without renting houses. So, 13,000 change for 11,000 plus 11,000. After that, you have nothing for living. And I asked candidate, probably there is some mistake in these calculations. Maybe it is untruthful information, but the candidate didn't try. Didn't try to appeal this information during the interview. Thank you. Any other proposals? Yes, Thomas.
Yes, I think I had the same reaction as everybody else. What struck me in the interview was that article about him taking the money from the businessman. I understand, of course, that there's fake news in every country and we can't rely on press reports. But what is concerning about that is that the article appeared to contain what he claims is a false declaration by a tax police operational investigator. If that isn't the case, I would assume that there would have been some investigation of that, some documentation, and he would have been better prepared to answer that question. But it was, to me, that whole issue remains a mystery. And so that's why I continue to have concerns about this candidate.
Пан Соболь, ви з нами на зв'язочку чи ні?
Evgeny Yurich, are you with us? I cannot hear you. Any other comments? I will have a comment. Dear colleagues, I would like to list the following arguments. For instance, there is always some information on the prosecutors and a lot of false information. They have no time to protest the information in press, because if they will protest all the information in media, with all other workloads, and also that's one of the way of influence to the candidate, to the prosecutor, to their direct activities, then physically he won't have time to do the main job according to the procedural obligations. That's why I cannot say that if candidate didn't protect himself or didn't protest it against media, I wouldn't perceive it as truth, even based on the activity or activity on the members of the commission. We have a lot of publications against different members. If we will protest all of them, we have no time for the meetings. That is the first. And also regarding declarations, regarding integrity. Well, I would like to bring your attention that just some time ago, candidates had check for integrity, and he was appointed for administrative position. If there were any doubts on the candidate's integrity, probably he wouldn't be appointed to the position. Analysis of some global information. I haven't seen some critical information not to support the candidate. Yeah, I can see that the candidate have some experience of working. I can see analysis of all that. I would like to support the candidate. As I can see, it's one of the decent candidates who has a practical experience, who can reinforce SAPO, and also he has a significant work experience.
Є ще коментарі, колеги?
Any other comments, colleagues?
Я буду голосувати за.
I will vote for, just because, we do not have candidates at all for the next stage. If we will calculate how much money he spends a month, but he also has a family. We can calculate. Well, let's sit then to calculate on the declaration for the years. Roman, I do not know in what way to do it at the moment. As civil society organizations, we are calculating that in grivna. They were divided it per month. I don't know how it's possible to calculate it if they had some savings and if there is some money they shouldn't be declared before. What am I trying to say? We have just 7 candidates left. And I do not have any critical issues to this candidate. That's why I will vote for him.
Тоді переходимо до голосування, колеги.
Well, let's go for voting then.
Ставлю на голосування проект рішення.
So, decision draft.
Є ще коментарі? Якщо немає,
Or maybe any other comments.
чи згодні члени конкурсної комісії з цим? Будь ласка, Богдан Васильович.
Yes, Bogdan.
Богдан Васильович, будь ласка.
Bogdan, we can hear you. Yes, I can.
Шановні колеги,
Dear colleagues, I support partially what Andriy said.
Розумієте, якось так все просто підраховувати. Для чого повинні...
Surely we can calculate everything, but everything needs to be proved. We are not going to have any candidates for the next stage. But still, I prefer more reliable information. For instance, I was surprised that he answered questions on his lawyer certificate, and he told himself that he practically didn't make any kind of work. He didn't go into court. And here we can see the formal nature of internship And also I was struck that he's much more younger than me, but he forgot the head of his internship. I do not want to believe that you can forget it because it's not one day. I can say that it was a kind of formal response for him. And, you know, it just happened in a parallel way with his life. And also I was struck that he was working in one place, after that in another one, after that in the third place. Probably it was connected to some circumstances. So, for instance, it's trending now in Lviv region, after that in Poltava region. Well, if someone is professional, if he works honestly, they make career more straightforward. These doubts I have. Thank you.
Таким чином у нас виходить по критерію спосіб життя, так?
Well, that is a criteria way of life, right?
Євген Юрійович.
Evgen Yurievich.
Вячеслав. Євген Юрійович, ви хотіли щось сказати?
Evgen Yurievich, you wanted to say something, right?
Ми вас не чуємо.
We cannot hear you.
Ми вас не чуємо. Євген Юрійович, ми вас не чуємо.
Evgen Yurievich, we cannot hear you.
Включіть звук.
Can you hear me now? Yes, we can.
Будь ласка.
Yes, please.
Справа в тому, що аналізуючи відповідного кандидата, ми дещо
In the analysis of this candidate, I think we are going from integrity criteria as we define some subjective views on his different places of works. Probably he had circumstances to do that. And on his documents, we can see that he had some checks. There are no comments on that, and I'm going to vote for. I'm afraid that very soon we won't have any candidates for the next stage. I will support this candidate. Any other comments? Show of hands then. Evgen Yurievich is with us. Do you agree that candidate Tymoshenko Maxim Petrovich corresponds to the integrity criteria according to the regulations of the Competition Commission and contest for taking position? Show of hands, please. Olena Yurievna, we cannot hear you. Four votes for Gujal, Koval, Sobol, and Busel. Decision is not taken. Thank you.
Шановний Максим Петрович,
Dear
рішення
Maxim Petrovich, the decision on your correspondence to integrity criteria was not taken enough vote. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
робимо перерву чи запрошуємо слідуючого?
Do you need a break or you're ready for the next candidate?
Запрошуємо тоді Томас Михайлович.
Tom,
Будь ласка, Томас.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that Drago will be here
Будь
in.
ласка, Томас.
Yes, can you hear me?
Да.
Okay. Yes, I just wanted to mention that Drago wrote to me. He will be here in a couple of minutes. So perhaps if we take a 5-minute break, that will allow him to join and participate from the beginning of the interview.
Тому
Да,
я
давайте, да.
пропоную перерву.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm proposing a break. 5 minutes break then, and we are waiting for Drago. Thomas, are you going to be with us till 6 p.m.?
Till I can be here for one more hour till
У нас один
1800.
кандидат, я думаю, що ми...
We have just one candidate. I think we will be able to process him in 60 minutes.
Wonderful.
Прошу виключити.
Break then.
Thank you.
Алло?
Катерина Коваль, hello.
Алло?
Hello.
Євген Юрійович.
Повітер беремо тестира до купа потеки повне.
Зможете вийти, так?
Задаровне.
Ну, у нас, в принципі, кворум є. Ми можемо починати
We have
працювати.
a quorum anyway, even without Mr. Sobol.
Завтра? Завтра ви маєте на увазі? Ну, давайте в кінці засідання порадимось. Добре, тоді я в кінці засідання
So
запропоную.
as for tomorrow, we will discuss in the end of the meeting.
Добре, добре. Ми починаємо працювати.
All right, we will start the work again.
Таким чином ми
Катерина Коваль. So we are continuing our meeting. We have Mr. Dragokos with us.
працювати. Це про
We can work. So please invite Mr. Taras Mikhailovich.
пан Соболь на дорозі. він буде
Mr. Sobol is on the road. Good day. Good day.
оригінали.
So please, do you have your originals?
Знайомилися з матеріалом.
So did you look at the materials? Yes. Katerina Koval.
Тарас Миколаївич.
Dear Taras Mikhailovich,
Продовжуємо
we continue the 9th session
співбесіди саме відповідності.
of the interviews regarding the correspondence to the integrity criteria. So today we have Andrei Gudjal, Katerina Koval, Olena Busol, Thomas Firestone, Drago Kos, Vyacheslav Novrotsky, Bogdan Romanyuk.
Якщо є відводи чи саме
Do you have any recusals or self-recusals? Dear colleagues, please let us know. And we also have Mr. Sobol.
немає самовідводів?
No self-recusals.
Дякую.
No recusals. No.
Тарас Михайлович.
So Taras Mikhailovich,
26.1900
born in 1988, never been brought to criminal responsibility, never been brought to administrative responsibility for corruption violations, graduated Kyiv National Taras Shevchenko University, Bachelor and Master of Arts, graduated from the National Academy of the Prosecutors with a master's degree.
працював
I used to work, started 2007 until 2011, director of the Pivdень company.
далі з 2008
From the year 8 until the year 10, company Org Agro Trade, student of the National Academy of the Prosecutors, 2011-2012, Prosecutor's Office of Pechersky District of Kiev, trainee, then a trainee as assistant to the prosecutor of Pechersky District of the city of Kiev, then a prosecutor, starting from the year 15, NABU, detective of the first department in the year 15 until 2020, detective of the NABU, of the second department of detectives, detective of the second department of the main department of detectives, senior detective of the NABU, of the second unit of detectives, senior detective head of the second department of the main department of detectives, deputy head of the third department of detectives of the main directorate of detectives of the NABU, and in the year 21 until now, NABU, deputy head of the third department of detectives of the main department of detectives of the NABU.
Я не буду зачитувати
I will not be reading all the special courses that you passed, but in your biography, you indicated that in the year 16, you have been nominated for a 10-day training program, FBI, in the United States, state of Virginia. So you have received a certificate. In the year 18, you passed selection to the Strasbourg University for a program that you complete in the year 19. You received a certificate with merits. You speak fluently English. So if you want to say something in addition, and please tell us about your motivation. Response. Dear Chairperson, dear Commission members, my way in the criminal justice started 10 years ago. I entered the National Academy of the Prosecutors of Ukraine for the master's program. I used to study within these walls, and it's a pleasure to be here again. I graduated the master's program with honors, and part of the program was the practice. Every week, every Wednesday, every student, we were sent to different districts of Kyiv. And during the second year, we also had the service practice. I had positive recommendations. I showed progress during the practice. And in the year 19, I was appointed as prosecutor in the prosecutor's office of Pechersk district. So this is where I was trained. I was renting an apartment in the Pechersky district. I had a possibility to choose the prosecutor's office after the practice. So this is how subsequently after the practice, after the work placement, I stayed to work there. During my work in the prosecutor's office, I was supervising the compliance with laws. And later when the new law on the prosecutor's office was passed, I was working on the procedural guidance regarding crimes in the office. I did separate investigative actions, and I did pre-trial investigations. I was, among other things, I was investigating a case regarding embezzlement of the budget funds, which were earmarked for medical treatment abroad. So as a result, so this was confirmed in the court, convicted one of the diplomats abroad, Ukrainian diplomat abroad, was announced a suspicion. As a result, I was in May so I was always interested in investigations as a profession, and I filed documents to the NABU. I passed the competition and starting from the September the 1st, I started to work in the NABU, and there I passed the way from the detective, senior detective, deputy head of the department. Right now, I work as a deputy head of the department of 54 detectives. During my work in the NABU, the detectives of my teams referred 87 criminal proceedings to court regarding up to 200 persons. So high-ranking officials like members of parliaments and heads of departments, as according to the so in court there were 13 convictions. 5 of them have entered into force. During my career in the National Bureau, I participated in investigations. I was doing detentions. I was filing documents on suspicion. But as head of the department, head of the unit, my task was to manage my team. And as deputy head of the department, my task is to manage the department heads and creating efficient environment for pre-trial investigations. In my opinion, there are 2 points in the work of a head. So one of them is organizing the process of investigations as a head of the investigative agency. And another point is, I believe, that the leader needs to always look for ways to improve efficiency and performance of the work of his team. And I also paid a lot of attention to this second part. First of all, the NABU, together with SAPO and High Anti-Corruption Court, so we are providing the new system, the ETS management, which should ease the work of a detective, prosecutor, investigative judge, and lawyer by providing them an opportunity to work inside one electronic digital environment to do the document exchange. And this elementary thing, like digital document exchange, can have a big potential to raise the efficiency and performance. We work this together with Anti-Corruption Initiative of the European Union. Another project which is aimed at raising performance is modern methods of interviews, the so-called procedural interview. So we made a memorandum with the International Foundation of Renaissance. So we made a work group out of law enforcement agencies, of prosecutors' offices, and universities. We were studying the practices of interviews in Ukraine and abroad. And as a result of this work, we have the studies. It was published. The study was published. I have it with myself. And in the year 19, we started a pilot. We started to try new techniques of investigations. Of course, maybe this is a forgotten old methods, but we created a pilot group of detectives, which is constantly trained in the national and international, within national and international trainings on communicating with people. And today, this team or this group, it is developing the standards of interviewing, taking into account the national experience. We will publish these standards, and we will publish a training program for investigators, for the so the detectives who are now studying will become the trainers. So this is the second. And the third point is that during my work as a head of the department, we were able to see that it is important for a leader to have leadership competences, because this is a usual practice. Usually, people go up the career path who do their work in a good way, but when they grow in career, they sometimes lack management competences, how to manage their team, because they don't always manage when they do investigations. This is strategical planning, resolution of conflicts, motivation of the team, goal setting, performance indicators. So these are management competences. And in order to develop the leaders, the administrative team, we organized a training program with the support of the Embassy of the United States. So this is a program for team leaders. I also participated in this program as an organizer and as a participant. And within the project of the International Renaissance Foundation, we have created a work group of the law enforcement agencies, prosecutors' offices, and different universities and colleges in order to develop the standards, the management standards in the sphere of criminal justice. In order to, I also founded the jogging club of the National Bureau to support the healthy lifestyle. I also participated in the foundation of the library. I also feel social responsibility in my profession. I'm an interviewer I'm doing interviews with representatives of criminal justice profession so that the students who study in the universities, they would have more information to understand what the profession is, what people do in this profession, because we need to show students what this is. And else, as for my motivation for this competition, I have worked in the prosecutor's office and in the NABU, and of course we have a lot of discussions with colleagues. What could improve the performance, the efficiency of fighting the corruption? Because every detective, every prosecutor would like to contribute to this fight. And as we can see certain directions where we can do something. So we can, first of all, it is necessary to develop a strategy of the SAPO for the next 3 or 5 years, where we could describe all the directions. The first one is determining the priority ways to fight corruption, because the corruption in the highest ranks, it is organized, and there are some spheres where corruption crimes do a lot of harm and pose the threat to the national security. And we have to concentrate the resources of the SAPO and NABU on this direction. The second point is continuous improvement of qualifications of the prosecutors of the SAPO, because there is a lot of responsibility on a prosecutor. He is a central figure during the pretrial investigation, during public accusation, during support of the public prosecution. And usually the best lawyers in the country are opposing the prosecutors in court. So the prosecutors have to continuously improve their knowledge, improve their skills in order to correspond to the demands of today. They need to have certain competencies, public speeches, legal writing, dynamic practice of the European Human Rights Court, of the Supreme Court. They need to know English for international cooperation, because a lot of funds are channeled out of Ukraine. They need to know the tools of financial crimes, because right now we are prosecuting persons. We also need to concentrate on search and return of assets, and also leadership competences, management competences. So now the prosecutor has a new role. He is a manager. He is doing procedural guidance. And having these managerial competences is also very important today. The third way is streamlining, standardizing the work. So during the work of NABU and SAPO, we can see, well, we have developed different legal positions of different prosecutors. Prosecutors are using different techniques and methods, so we need standardization to improve efficiency. And the last thing is to organize cooperation with the government agencies in the anti-corruption fight and with executive agencies as well, because we understand that the most threatening corruption areas, it's evident that in this field, the fight of SAPO and NABU are doing a great impact. But we need to concentrate on prevention as well. I mean the NAPC. We need a contribution from other executive agencies like fiscal service and tax service. So it depends on the sphere that has the largest risk of corruption. To realize this task is my motivation to participate in the competition. Thanks a lot for giving me this time, and I'm ready to respond to give answers to the questions. Katarina Koval, thanks a lot. You have really made a very good preparation, so we can understand your motivation. So usually I ask one question. In June 13, you have defended your dissertation paper. So please let us know about the topic of your dissertation paper. As I can see in the materials, you have graduated. You graduated Kyiv National Taras Shevchenko University. You have a master degree and the National Academy of the Prosecutors. So during your studies in the Prosecutors Academy, you defended a dissertation paper in the National Aviation University. So were you working at that time? Was it full-time studies, or where was this extramural? So I would like to understand, because you were a student in the National Academy of Prosecutors, and at the same time you were a postgraduate in the National Aviation University. Response: thank you for the question. I was preparing for it. And in fact, I had to remind the chronology. So this is how it looks. I started studying in the year 13. I started studies in the Prosecutors Academy, and Antalya Oleghivna Rybalka was my leader of my scientific work. She was managing my scientific work, and in the second or third month of my studies, she offered the students to write a common scientific article. I agreed. We published this article in our law magazine. And after that, well, let's say the writing of a dissertation paper, it was the dream of my father. So I understood this. I understood that about the possibility of the professorship career. So my mentor asked me if I would be interested in a dissertation. So we started working on the topic. So her specialization was administrative law and financial law. So we chose a topic, administrative and legal coercion by the prosecutor's office. So we completed the main body of the work during my studies. When I started work in the prosecutor's office, I didn't have so much time to work in this research. And in the year 13, in the end of the year 12, we were talking with her that we need to speed up, because if I didn't do that at that time, I would never do this. So in the year 13, there was a defense. There was no special board regarding my specialty in the Prosecutors Academy. So she offered to do this in the National Aviation University. So in the January of 14, I received my diploma. So where were you studying? So I was a postgraduate, and I was attached to the Kyiv International University. So this is where the topic was approved. So this was not a postgraduate degree. So you were studying in the Prosecutors Academy. At the same time, you were in the Kyiv International University as an and you defended your thesis in the National Aviation University. So as for your supervisor, you told us, well, she also worked. She was in the National Prosecutors Academy, and she could work. So the exams were in the Kyiv International University. You were studying in the Prosecutors Academy. You were working as a prosecutor. You were defending your thesis in the Aviation University. So yes, this was according to a contract. Thank you. Because in the materials, we have a copy of a document, the apostle, and the copy. Your diploma was signed by Dmitro Volodymyrovich Tabachnik. So were there any issues with your document? Why it was signed by Mr. Tabachnik? No. Apostle, I did an apostle, this was connected to another issue. This was not only about the diploma of candidate of legal sciences. I also had apostle on my documents of higher education because I was thinking of joining the London University for a master's program. This was also my dream, but on the work, I understood that I wouldn't have any time or possibility to get this degree. So this dream was not realized, but this is why I have apostle. Katerina Koval, yes, that's why I'm asking you why the signature was checked. Response, no, this was apostle on the translation of my diploma so that I could file it to compete to a foreign university. Thank you. Thanks a lot for explaining. Sometimes we have those questions to candidates of science. Thank you. Dear colleagues, do you have any other questions to the candidate? Usually we asked about disciplinary responsibility, whether you have any commendations. No, I have never been brought to disciplinary responsibility. I had a commendment. This was a gratitude from the director of the NABU in the year 16, in early 16. So this was one commendment during my period of service. Katerina Koval, because we have some detectives of the NABU that were commended every 3 months. So is this a usual practice? So what are the grounds for commendments if you were not? Response, the practice is as follows. People, usually a detective is commended, the person who is doing an investigation, because this is a person who applies a lot of effort in the work, in the investigation. If the head of a department is actively contributing to an investigation and to the work of his department, if he makes a big contribution, he may be commended, but in the last turn. This is the practice of the NABU. Katerina Koval. Dear colleagues, do you have any questions? Olena Busol. Dear Taras Mikhailovich, can you hear me? In the year 15, in the mass media, you were called as one of the wealthiest detectives of NABU. There were serious questions regarding declaration. There was a detailed analysis of the declaration and a conclusion. The ethics allow to say that Mr. Filonenko is not only a detective and a prosecutor, but also a millionaire. In the year 16, another publication says in its article, there was an article, anti-corruption fighters, richest anti-corruption fighters, Glavcom, investigators and anti-corruptioners, who is hired as NABU detectives. So why there is such a smear campaign against you? What is stated in those articles? Katerina Koval, Taras Mikhailovich, we have materials of the special background check. There are some comments from the NAPC regarding you. You answered some questions in the questionnaire. There were applications from the NGOs. We have materials from the mass media. So please, response. I can say as follows. First of all, the journalist who wrote the article never addressed me in person. They never gave me the possibility to give my own comments. And in fact, I read those articles and I saw, as for the year 15 article, they say that at that time I had a car, I had a motorbike, I had some assets. Yes, this is a fact. I had certain assets, but what are the sources of them? Starting the year 2000, my parents have been in business. They have companies doing agricultural business. They have legal sources of income. And therefore, those publications, well, they are probably they give some room for fantasy to the audience, because I didn't find any information about any violations in my declaring. I am conscientiously declaring the assets that I own, and regarding these issues, I never had any violations. As for the sources of income, I said that these were the funds of my parents. I also sent information to the Commission that starting from the year 2005, 2006, my parents were actively investing in real estate. In the year 8, they sold a land plot in the village of Hatne, Kiev Svetoshin district, Kiev region, for $250,000. Of them, 213 were deposited on my personal account. Yes, I had money, I had funds for my expenses. They were legally obtained. And this is how I can explain. Thanks a lot for the answer. Katerina Koval, any other questions? Katerina, Mr. Navrotsky. Dear colleagues, please, if you are satisfied with an answer, I don't want to interrupt you, but please remember that we have 60 minutes before Thomas can leave us. Navrotsky, Taras Mikhailovich, did you file a case to the court to refute this untrue information in the mass media? Response. Well, the thing is, so what I could say in my claim, these were subjective opinions of the author. If they say that I'm a wealthy young man, this is a personal subjective opinion. Can I refute this? I don't know. And as for the article, it analyzes my declaration. It states that I own certain assets, and the author is trying to say that I'm a public servant. So I believe that there was no point to refute. To continue regarding the assets.
So the cryptocurrency is declared owned by your wife, and according to the website, there are currency exchange to this cryptocurrency to US dollars, and there are some discrepancy in declarations. There is one amount, but by the way of calculation, it was established that the minimum cost of that asset cannot be less than 81,000, but there is 61,000. The question is that in previous declarations, these assets were not mentioned. The wife couldn't have this amount of funds. So the question is, on the time of buying cryptocurrency, its declaration for the moment of 2016. Because you know that's a rare case to have cryptocurrency in the declarations of law enforcement authorities. I provided explanations for this question. I can repeat it. Look, Taras, there is a question, and there are answers for the questions that is sufficient for us. But we have the request from civil society organizations, the ones who are watching us at the moment, and probably they receive the response. That's why I'm ready to explain in detail information on cryptocurrency. First of all, there's a question on amount of cryptocurrency. The quantity is the same from 2017, and that amount hasn't been changed. That's about the difference in the amount of cryptocurrency. Also, there is a difference as the evaluation was made according to the different rules. Why? Because even at the moment, the asset cryptocurrency is not well regulated, and at that time there was no legal field at all how to regulate it. Even in 2019, by the law, it shouldn't be declared. But I started declaring it from 2018, from the moment of purchase. What did I do in 2018? The general rule was everything is declared for the 31st of December, the last day of the year. So I took all the assets in cryptocurrencies. After that, I went to the stock market and I took historical data for the 31st of December. And for instance, there is Bitcoin 0.36. And according to the data of this crypto stock exchange, it costed something like 30,000 per unit. And all the assets of my wife was 1,352, for instance, grivnas. That's how I did it. But in 2019, the law was adopted, and also the law on corruption prevention was adopted, and there is a rule that we should declare it at the moment of purchase. And from 2019, after this rule was fixed, as these assets are volatile and their price change, that's why I did it according to the law. And after that, the amount hasn't been changed as it is the cost of the asset for the date of purchase. And about the source of origin of the funds, I would like to say that it was my money and money of my wife. My wife has some entrepreneurship activities, and this was the sources of the funds to purchase cryptocurrency. For the time of purchase, I remember very well the amount. It was something like 67,000 grivna. And it is mentioned in my declarations. Another question. There are a lot of information in your file that your family members have property in Russian Federation, in Crimea, and your cousin works in Russian or Ukrainian military unit. Regarding my cousin, I'm not sure if she's working at the moment. We do not talk to each other, but she was at the Ukrainian part of the Crimea. And regarding my property, well, you know, just in your file, there is information about some orders in Moscow, in Crimea. There are some LLCs in these territories, private property of the family. That's why I would like to ask you about your family composition and their property in Russian Federation. I can explain the following. First of all, neither me nor the members of my family have any kind of property. Also, there was a question about my friend who left Ukraine for Russian Federation. I have such a friend. Time to time, we call to each other. Neither me nor members of my family, I mean wife or children, any connections to the Russian Federation, to the Crimea or temporarily occupied areas. But regarding close relatives, I can say that I have a wide circle of relatives. Our family is big. My mother, my father, they had more than 5 children in their families. I do not talk to all of them. And regarding my cousin, the information is the following. I provided information that it is confidential and that I wasn't granted access to distribute it. But I asked them and my mother and my sister or cousin, they told me they do not have this property at the moment. Yes, they had this property before, but after that, but they were purchased before 2010. And according to my mother, they were alienated. Regarding the alienation of this property, it was a new information for me. Because my mother has a separate life, she's a director of the agricultural enterprise, she's an adult person, she takes her own decisions. Well, it's not the case when I tell my mother what to do. She takes her own decisions, what to do in different situations. That's why information is following at the moment. And I was allowed to tell this information because I understand that my participation in this competition already puts some pressure on them, but they do not have any kind of property on these territories. Thank you, thank you. Any other questions, colleagues? Yes, Drago.
Yes, a question about, let's say, in one of the register of the courts of the Desnyansky district court. Can you hear me? Okay, so the question for the candidate, in the register of the Desnyansky district court of Kiev, there is something about in connection with non-paid utilities for the building and structures for the period August 2016 to June 2019. Can you explain a bit what is that all about?
Пане Драго, ну, по-перше, я дізнався про...
Mr. Drago, first of all, I knew this information just today when I got acquainted with the materials before the interview. I do not know any details. No one contacted me on the issue of payment of utilities. The only thing that I can tell is that from 2003 till 2008 or 2009, probably, we did live in the Desnyansky district of the city of Kiev. After that, we moved to Obolon district of the city of Kiev, and that apartment in the Desnyansky district was sold. And according to the materials I've seen today, there is a non-payment of utilities for 2016-2019, but that time we didn't live there for 6 or 8 years already. We already sold that apartment. That's why that's a new information for me. I do not know anything about it. And if I need to find, well, probably I will need to find out more on that, as I do not have any information. We always paid utilities timely in all the properties that we use, and we had any kind of litigation in this aspect.
Okay, thank you.
In the materials, there was my surname, name, patronymic, and Desnyansky district. You know, that's the only mention of Desnyansky district. I can imagine that we were living there for some time. And probably when this apartment was alienated, probably these utilities were not registered in a proper way. That's why I really need to find out what's going on with that fact. But I know that in 2010 we sold that apartment, and from 2008 we didn't live there at all. So if it is from 2016, that's not a question to us. Probably someone paid your debt. I cannot be sure it was me. I've just seen it today, that there is such a judgment. I had no time to find out what is it, but we always paid all the utilities timely. Probably you didn't know about all the apartments. No, I do. I just do not know in what way this information was found. Maybe really they have some ruling on in the Destiansky court regarding that. I will find out. Also, there is additional information that you were brought to administrative responsibility for traffic rules violation, and that car wasn't declared by you. No, that's not true. Regarding declaration, it's not true, as I told already. I declare all my expenses, and I provided this information to the commission before, but before 2015, I had a car that was sold in August 2015, and that purchase was declared, and me and my family are using this car. I use public transportation or taxi in my daily life. And there are smart cards, and they have smart cards. I'm paying taxi often. You can find a lot of confirmation of that. My wife almost doesn't use public transportations. She uses taxi as well. And really in 2018 and 2020, I took my mother's car that was owned by her, and I used it for 19 days. And in 2020, I used it for 20 days, I think. In what way reflected in my declaration? There are declaration rules, and the rule is the following. I should show it if I use it for more than 83 days, but 19 and 20 days, it is not 83. But I understand also that the fact of my mom use of this car should be declared, and I declare it as a gift from my mom to myself in declaration for 2019 and 2020. So I calculated how the approximate price of this car, and that's what I declared. That's why in my declaration it is declared like a gift. And also I have screenshots with me. In 2018 there was an option to describe what kind of gift. So I wrote down the use of the Mercedes GL number plate this and that for 19 days, but the system didn't perceive it in such a way. I have all the screenshots confirming that I was trying to do it this way. I had intention to declare it in a full volume. Drago, I'm sorry. Do you have any questions? I have something to add. I do not take into account the fact of use of the car and those facts of bringing to administrative responsibility. I informed about that administrative responsibility my manager at the same day, and after that I came and I provided a report about that. I provided all the confirmation documents. So Thank you.
Ну, Драго, ви завершили? Чи
Drago, did you finish or you would like to have additional questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Дякую. Тоді Соболь просто.
Thank you. Mr. Sobol, you wanted, right? Yes, Evgeny Юрьевич.
Дякую за надане слово.
Thank you.
Такі два коротеньких питання. Що для вас
Two
особисто
short questions for you personally. What is integrity
будете сприяти
and how you're going to
серед своїх
promote integrity among your employees? Thank you very much. That's a good question. You know, for me, integrity is a complex notion. First of all, we can find the ethical dimension of integrity, the need to follow the rules established by the society, by the laws. Also, we need to follow moral norms existing in the society that are generally acceptable. But if we are talking about the position in SAPO, well, here there are a few factors. First one, do not use the position in personal or any other interests, only in the interest of the society. The prosecutor is servicing. And I think that
Завжди було в площині інтересів.
that's the most important. And also that service. And also I should set as a personal example to my employees. You know, here there are two aspects. There is such a definition as the attitude of the manager, probably. So the manager should set his own example of integrity in this case. And the second, as far as I know, every year in General Prosecutor's Office, integrity questionnaire is being filled. Also, there is a special inspection. Thank you. That's enough.
Але ви працюєте в НАБУ. У вас є
But
спеціальний?
you work in NABU, right? Do you have a special unit who controls it? Yes, we have ethical control unit. And also we have checks for integrity. We have the whole number of preventive actions to prevent such cases. Look, Taras Mikhailovich, why we are asking? Because we have information prepared by your organization, by NABU, regarding your close relatives, regarding the personality of your mother, of your sister. That's why we would like to ask you personally, as we got NABU reports on every candidate. We are asking every candidate, but you are employee of NABU, as your organization provide information. Evgeny Юрьевич, another question?
немає.
No other questions. Thank you. I have a question. A few questions to you. One of them.
У мене є відомості щодо перетину вами кордону
I have information that you crossed the border,
в 2000
and I can see that in 2016, that Gujal, while you were in National Anti-Corruption Bureau for 17 days, you were abroad. Could you please tell us more about this trip? Who financed that trip? Did you declare the expenses? No, not 17, 70 days. Yeah, really, I was abroad, and as I told in my biography already, in 2016, I was nominated to pass the learning program of Academy for Police Officers in USA, first of all. This information is public. You can find it in internet. 250 participants take part in this program every year. And I was one of the international students, and During independence of Ukraine, about 20 Ukrainians took part in this program. Most of them are working in the police, in the SBU as well, and I was the first one who was nominated from NABU. After me, there was another detective nominated. It is a 10 weeks program. That's why for 70 days I was abroad. And there is a report on passing this program. It was passed successfully with decent grades. Who financed it? It was funded by the host party. It was the Embassy of USA in Ukraine. And this trip shouldn't be declared as, according to NAZK rules, if host party is paying for the trip, these funds shouldn't be declared. How did you combine that program with your work? But it was a trip from NABU. It was approved by NABU management. Also, you've been abroad for many times. Could you please tell us the purpose and who funded that? And did you declare it, you and your family members? There was no need to declare them because the amount wasn't sufficient for declaration. Expenditures were small. Really, I was abroad. If you want, I can comment on the every one of them. They were connected to the business trips. Also, I took part in monitoring and evaluation of OECD Ukraine. And after that, in Paris, I was present as representatives or representative of NABU. Also, there were my learning trips. There were some trips were business trips, but also I went abroad as a tourist. They were paid from my salary. And the amount of the income was enough to cover these trips. And these trips, you call them business trips abroad, yeah? Different missions, all that. How they were correlated with your direct responsibility? As your direct responsibility is pre-trial investigation. If you want to fight corruption, if you say that you have a development strategy, and after that you go there, you are working for 7 years already, and there is such a negative attitude of society to the work of anti-corruption bodies. The society is not satisfied with the work of anti-corruption bodies. And you are detectives, and you are chief detectives, and you are the head of the department. Why you didn't work hard enough to show that anti-corruption authorities could work better? I got your question, Andrei. Well, the result that I presented today, it's not my personal result. That is the result of self-development and constant improvement. I do not think that Ukraine should be isolated from other countries and do not know what's going on in the world, as in the world we can have best practices, the same as in Ukraine, that we can adopt and to bring something new. That's why I would say that these trips were directly connected to my obligations as a manager. As a manager, I do not just organize the investigation, but also I need to know What is the planning of the work of the department? What are the goals? How to set the goals? To work with international partners, and also all the strips were very useful. For instance, graduates of Per Academy. Every year, 250 police officers are going there. And also there are lists of participants of other programs, and this data helped us to get operative information, to share information, police-to-police communication, that it is correlated directly with my job duties. And regarding the evaluation of society, well, I can tell you the results of the departments I was heading. There should be some methodology to evaluate the efficiency of the National Bureau. Yes, the level of trust from the society can be less or more, but to provide the assessment of the efficiency of NABU, we should have audit verification. And this assessment wasn't made yet. Thank you very much. During response, you said that you are sharing cooperative information. In what way?
Різних країн передбачено нашим кримінально-процесуальним кодексом передбачено.
By our criminal procedure code, there is only one order how we can do it, through the international legal cooperation. In what way are you sharing this information? How you can use it then? Is it just for your operative information for understanding, and after that you legalize it? Or in what way you are doing that?
First of all, according to the law on the NABU, we are a subject, a party to the international agreement. And you are right, we have a certain procedure for information exchange. But in order to implement this exchange, we need to sign these agreements, and we need to communicate with the countries. We need to initiate those international treaties. As for the information exchange, information has different categories. As for the pretrial investigations and evidence, you are right. There is a department in the Prosecutor General's office, but with certain countries, we have bilateral direct relations, and the NABU can be the central agency in some proceedings. But in all the proceedings, we apply to the Prosecutor General's office. But as I've said, police-to-police cooperation, the exchange operation, operative information that cannot be used in a criminal proceeding. So we always make a note that this is intelligence only. It cannot be used in a criminal proceeding. If we need it for criminal proceeding, we need to use official channels for international assistance. But it allows us to determine the way of the movement, the way of progress. I'm sorry, we have exhausted 60 minutes. Katarina Koval, let us vote to extend the meeting, please, if you don't mind. Yes, unanimous vote. Mr. Sobol, do you mind if we continue? Thank you. Another question from Andrei Gujal. According to the information that we have, your wife owns a land plot in the Brovary district, Kiev region, of 1 hectare, and she lives in Kiev. So, how did she get a land plot on the territory of Kiev region? response. There is a 1,000 square meters, not a hectare. As for the circumstances of acquiring the land plot, I can say in 2011, from the moment of studies in the Kiev Shevchenko University, I had a friend, and his friend had a brother. He was older than us, so we became friends, and he, at some point, he is a lawyer, and he said that he was looking for a land plot in order to acquire it according to the land code of Ukraine. This was just an information in 2011. And later in 2012, he found a possibility to acquire the land plot, and he asked us if we wanted to apply for a land plot too. So we discussed this in the family, and my wife filed an application for a land plot, and we obtained this land plot. This is near Semipolki village, not inside the village. This is far in the field. There are no communications to the land plot. So we had certain plans about it, but we could not realize them. And in the previous years, we sold a lot of movable property. We also think we would also like to sell this land because we don't do anything with the land. So what was the designation? It was designated for individual gardening. I answered it in the questionnaire. Andrei Gujal, one of the questions that we have in the questionnaire is that you didn't declare the value of this land plot. Who prepared the design documentation? Who was working with the documents? Because I was also filing documents for a land plot. You need to prepare a design documentation. You need to indicate the value of the land plot. You need to enter the information in the geocadastre. You need to have a cadastral number, and you need to have an evaluation. It was in the year 12. We concluded an agreement on the land project. At the moment of declaring, I had a state act, and according to the declaration rules, I had to declare. Well, there is no information about this land plot in the public information. It was obtained back in the year 12. It was not entered into the register of titles. I had a state certificate, and according to an APC instructions, the value is indicated in the document of title. The document of title that I have, it doesn't have the value. Well, I entered the evaluation according to the NAPC rules. We didn't perform the official evaluation because it was not required. Maybe if we do expert evaluation, I will act according to the law and NAPC instructions for declaring. We don't have a project on this land plot. I declared this land plot from the very beginning in my prosecutor's declaration. And later, according to the new law on the prevention of corruption, there were new rules, but I didn't have the necessary documents to indicate the value. I can't tell you the value of this land plot. Maybe, so for example, if you search online for similar land plots, its value is no more 50,000 hryvnias. But the land plot different land plots may have different values. You can look on the map. There is this. It is far in the fields. Andriy Gujal. My last question. Do you have any agreements on covert cooperation with foreign special services? And what is the essence? I would like to say that this is a question from polygraph test. I reviewed the result of my polygraph tests before the interview, and I give my consent for the commission to disclose this information during the interview. The conclusions of the polygraph test, I don't understand all the results of the polygraph test. After the testing, so I passed it 3 times, 2 times in the NABU and 1 time in this competition. So I would like to mention this before the next questions. The methodology is different. The methodology for this competition compared to the methodology during the selection to the NABU for the first time and second time. And in particular, the polygraph doesn't tell you what people think. Polygraph shows the reaction to some questions. The polygraph experts, they were asking additional questions in case of reactions. But in this case, the polygraph expert didn't ask me any additional question. And in regarding some questions, the conclusions do not correspond to the reality. So please pay your attention, dear Commission members. All the conclusions have to be confirmed with evidence. And there is no evidence that I have any connections with secret services of other countries regarding bribery or non-declaring. There is no evidence at all. So I'm ready to discuss this. I can explain. I have explanations on some questions. On other questions, I don't have any other explanations. Katarina Koval. Did you have any remarks after the process? No, I didn't have any remarks. Katarina Koval. Usually, after the polygraph, the candidates say that they have no comments, no remarks, no observations. Yes, because I don't understand the methodology. But when I was leaving the polygraphology office, I said that you have different methodology. So in Ukraine, there are 2 associations. There is All Ukrainian Association of Polygraphologists, which were working on the SAP competition. They use the polygraph, which is produced in Ukraine. They use a Russian methodology adapted to Ukraine. And there is another board of polygraphology, and they use the methodology that is used in the USA, where the polygraph has been used for many years. Those 2 methodologies are different. I don't know, but really, I have serious questions to the use of the polygraph during court hearings, because methodologies are changing, and some of the data may be very volatile. Of course, there are certain questions, for example, about the income. You can see there was a question connected with a special check when people were asking me additional questions. For example, I declared assets for 30,000, but I didn't indicate the sources. And I had a choice. At the 15th of February, I didn't have the data about the persons, and I provided the data later. In my declaration, as much as possible, I indicated my income. But as for the special services, foreign special services, so was I, do I work with special services of other countries? Well, they didn't ask me any additional questions during the polygraph test. If I had a significant reaction, they didn't ask me any additional questions. For me, just before this interview, I reviewed the polygraph tests, and I can say that there are a lot of discrepancies, and they have only probable nature. So Katerina Koval, as for the polygraph in the NABU, what methodology is used in the NABU polygraph? Because we are not looking at the methodology, whether this is Russian or American. Response, yes. But there is a reference to the procedure in the State Bureau of Investigation competition. Katerina Koval, yes, this is the methodology registered in the Ministry of Justice. So you are saying that there are two methodologies, so you understand this question. No, I have only superficial information. Katerina Koval, I don't know how many methodologies are used and what methodology was used during your interview. So what methodology was used previous times? Response, I believe that I was undergoing polygraph tests according to the American methodology. Because during the selection so first and second time, the first time was according to the American methodology, and the second time was according to the methodology of International Association of Polygraph Experts. So maybe there are even more methodologies, but I know that those two methods were different. In one methodology, there is a lesser number of questions. If you give a significant reaction, the expert gives you additional questions, because people can give emotions in many aspects. In order to exclude something wrong, you need to ask a lot of additional questions. And therefore, I just wanted to share my opinion. Katerina Koval, we were very thoroughly selecting the polygraph experts in order to avoid conflict of interests. So that's how we decided to choose the All Ukrainian Association of Polygraphologists. As far as I know, they conducted more than 900 tests for State Bureau of Investigations and for the NABU. So we were not the first to contact them. So we were trying to select the best institution for the polygraph tests. As for the methodology, so do you say that American methodology would show other results? Well, you are the first person who consented to disclose the polygraph results, because according to our regulation, Appendix 8, we have selected the polygraphology organizations and it was approved. Response, I don't know about the Commission's decision. As for the polygraph test, it seems to me that if they had given me additional questions, I'm the person who knows the truth. I was guided by the result. maybe I can initiate some response, some feedback to this polygraph test, because it's difficult to accept it. Катерина Коваль. Катерина Коваль. So there are certain answers. For example, we ask, do you use drugs? The candidate says yes in polygraph, in the video, and here in this room. So if the candidate confirms that he used to use drugs, there are no doubts. And now as well, we cannot refer to the results, but we can give additional questions. If a commission member is satisfied with your answer, is not satisfied, so you have the rights to do this response. No, I'm ready to discuss the results. If you have any additional questions, I can answer. Roman Kuibida. Did you find any common questions during your first, second, and third polygraph test? Response. This is what I wanted to say. When we were doing polygraph tests for the NABU, we had a lot of questions that are repeated, that are common with this test. There were questions about non-declaring, on any violations, on the use of drugs, on connections with special services of foreign countries. So there was a number of questions. If I had some significant reactions, I wouldn't have passed to the NABU. And the second question, the second test, the second polygraph test was in NABU as well, and it had similar questions. Okay, Roman Kuibida. There were a lot of questions. Well, you provided all the explanations, but I have one more question. A lot of at the same time, you have retained your rights to the parking places, but you don't use a car. Response. You know, I have a good experience as a driver, starting from 18 years. You can see that we have cars in our family. So my father died in the year 19. So he left a heritage of several cars that were not sold. And returning to your question, I have experience of using a car, and the car needs expenses. I just made my calculations. Of course, any car more expensive than $50,000, if you actively use such expensive car, its maintenance would cost more than 80,000 hryvnias per year. So we in the family decided to use this money for some other things, not to use a car. Maybe in the future we will change our mind. As for the parking lots, as you see, I have declared them. I didn't have time to work with them. I started renting out one of the parking lot places, and I have this in my declaration. The second parking place, I use it as a warehouse. I keep my personal things there. Sometimes my sister parks her car at the second parking lot. So right now we think to sell those parking spots because they are not very efficient, because we would like to invest the money in some other things. So maybe we will sell those spots, but now we have them. Anything. I understand that, well, it's not good when money just stays without any function. At some point of time, we invested in the cryptocurrency. We can invest in the real estate because there is inflation going on in the world. Due to the pandemic, there is inflation of foreign currency, of the national currency as well. So we have to think about investments. Any other questions, please, Katarina Koval? So we are abusing the time, but I think, well, because one of the candidates was not able to come today. A question from Olena Busol. Do you believe that you are a person of honesty and integrity? Response, do you know? Well, I can say this is a sort of a question. There is no person without a sin on this earth, and I'm not an exclusion, but I understand this is my upbringing, and this is my profession to serve the society, and it requires high standards of integrity. I'm trying to comply with those standards, and I'm working on myself. Katarina Koval, thank you. Dear colleagues, do you have any other questions? Can we proceed to discussion? If there is no other questions, please wait outdoors. Please wait outside the room. Dear colleagues, please. Katarina Koval, do you have any comments, any suggestions? Mr. Sobol. So, Katarina Koval, no comments, no questions. Mr. Sobol, well, the thing is that really the candidate is was very well balanced. He answered all the questions, and on my side, I will support this candidate in this criteria. Thank you.
Більше немає коментарів, колеги?
Any other comments, please? Olena Busol. Dear colleagues, the analysis of candidate statements gives me the reasons to point your attention to some of his sayings that testify that he was not sincere. For example, what he said, I would like to explain this in the following way. So he is sort of preparing to speak lies. I don't remember exactly. Then I saw the materials today. He said, I don't know how. So evidently it was not registered. So the candidate probably doesn't know. So he says probably when he is asked very simple, straightforward questions. Or he says, I can't say. I'm a person who knows the truth. The person who knows the truth keeps silence and doesn't try to explain. As for the Mr. Gujal question about the work with foreign services, he doesn't give a straight answer. He is explaining about the polygraph. He is promising to give sincere answers. And he speaks a lot about in answer to a simple question from Mr. Gujal. As for the cooperation with foreign special services, foreign intelligence services, he says, so at first he keeps silence, and then he says, it depends on the context. So this means no clear answer. Another statement. It is important for the candidate which challenges, so about the foreign partners, which challenges are faced by the foreign partners? So he is concerned not by the problems of Ukraine, but by the problems of the international partners. And to my question, whether he believes that he is an honest person, he didn't give a straightforward answer. Therefore, I believe, well, I could give even more examples, but this would take time, and on the basis of all that I mentioned, I have doubts that the candidate was sincere. Thank you. Drago, please.
Yeah, I think we are here to assess the integrity of the candidates, not their oral capabilities. You know, the way how you are asking questions today is the way when you ask questions when you don't have anything normal to ask. Because some of the questions which you ask, especially Ms. Bossel, are you consider yourself a person of integrity? If somebody would tell me yes, I would be very suspicious. He gave a very good answer, saying that for each of us, for everybody, for himself, for herself, is an honest person, but there is nobody without the sin. You can take a look in the Bible if you want to. What is said here in the Bible. If somebody without sin, they should throw a stone into me. So what we witnessed today was what it was not a question of integrity. It was questioning on something else. Madam Chair, you spent 10 minutes on discussing the polygraph. First of all, I didn't know that you're an expert for polygraph. And you were exploring his knowledge of polygraph tests. This is not integrity. This is something else. We can have discussion on polygraph because most probably I know most on polygraph than all of you. But this is not the essence here. We have to assess the integrity and have to say, for a long time, I haven't heard such good, let's say, genuine answers from someone, because he was very clear. He knew where he cannot give the, let's say, very simple answer, because there's no simple answer. Many of your questions were asking the way that there is no simple answer to that. And please do accept this. There were elements in the documentation which could give rise for integrity issues, but he replied to all of them. All of the rest, it was not integrity, it was something else. And I don't know what it was. I guess you know. And on his cooperation with foreign services, since it's known that some of you have very good connections with SBU, I'm sure the SBU would warn us all that if we would have a candidate who is working for foreign services. So this is not the issue here. So I don't know what you want to achieve. It is the integrity itself which we have to assess, nothing else. Not the way how the candidates reply to us. Thank you.
Дякую, будь ласка.
Thank you, please. Mr. Romanuk, Mr. Roman Koibida. No, this was not a spontaneous thing. He asked us earlier to provide him the information, to provide him with the conclusions. I would tell you frankly, I had a lot of questions when I was reading the materials of the work group, but later I read his explanations and he removed all the questions about assets, because he has a lot of assets. Well, as for the answers, really, they were well balanced. I couldn't have any doubts. As for the polygraph, I was even asking the association to test me on the polygraph to see how it works, but they refused. So I can use polygraph.
No, I just confirm for myself the facts of integrity or disintegrity of some guys. And also regarding the business trips, as you asking all the questions of them, I also took part in a lot of trips. The part of the delegations were public servants. Representative of the executive power, and the part of them were representative of civil society organizations, including those trips that were study visits, very useful trips for the purpose of work, where employees, public servants are working. And I would like to tell you that employee who is working, he does business trips only for the execution of his duties. If we have the procedure for collection evidence, that's exactly what they should follow. They have a decent salary, and the state just wants them to work with integrity. And what we get in the result, one employee is absent for 50 days, another one is absent for 70 days, and there are no work results. I had no questions on candidate who fancied or anything like that, and on candidate, the candidate, as for me, was rather decent. What I didn't like in his answers. But in general, I had very positive impression on the candidate. What I didn't like, when candidate, when I asked how the documents were composed, and you can have a look yourself that land distribution, how is it going on? And it cannot be given if there is no standard money assessment of the plot of land. So me as a specialist, I know that when candidate is saying that it wasn't mentioned in the document, after that he just decided he shouldn't mention it. That's it. No, it's different. Kuibida says, no, for someone who is working on the state position, there shouldn't be any limitations on that. And it is giving to the design organization, another one is going to geocadastre, and he should keep one of them as well. And the fourth one goes to the authority taking this decision. So there is no problem just to find the project of land distribution with a list of documents, and you can find that formal money evaluation. So he should know about that. And in general, I have positive attitude on the candidate, but still, honestly saying, I'm not sure that candidate shall bring something else here. And also, I'm concerned that he didn't give direct response on the cooperation. What was it exactly? He started telling about the methodology of assessment, but you can just say that I'm not cooperating with anyone, that's it. But at the same time, he informed himself on some cooperation that is not connected to his job duties. Probably there was just extra procedural interaction. Is he an agent? I cannot say that. I do not want to believe it. I have some doubts. Without these circumstances, I would support this candidate. In general, it's more or less decent candidate. Yes, Vyacheslav. Dear colleagues, I will explain my position. At the beginning of the interview, I had very nice impression of the candidate. But with every new answer, unfortunately, it disappeared. Concrete things that I didn't like, that are against the candidate. First of them, that there was negative information on him in media. He thinks that it's not needed to protest this information. He says there are just judgments, but there were also some circumstances, and his reputation was involved. Also, candidate is saying that he is not telling his mother what to do. She's an adult, independent woman, but at the same time, he uses her property. Also, on his concrete answer on the property of relatives abroad, probably I haven't heard it. It wasn't concrete. And to explain the availability of the personal property that was gained with the help of the parents entrepreneurs, probably it's right. But we are selecting the head of SAP, not the son of his parents, who will count on their help. That's it. And regarding his trips abroad, I'm not agree that it is a negative information about candidate. I think that studying of foreign experience is one of his job duties. And that is a positive thing to do, especially regarding his integrity. Thank you very much for your attention. I would like to react to Vyacheslav's words regarding publications. If the author select the tone that is a person who has a lot of property, but he doesn't hide it, he declares it, and you can find all this property in the declaration. And after that, he says that he's a rich guy, and you cannot protest them. What to protest? Yeah, these are data from declaration, but when they call him a rich guy, how to protest that? It's too subjective. Yeah, it can be negative. So, to protest it, it doesn't have any perspectives. It will just bring more attention to this kind of articles. You just ignore these articles usually. That's it. What else? And regarding his maintenance by the parents, as far as I understand, parents helped him at the very beginning when he just started in the declaration. We cannot find parents' traces or any kind of dependence from the parents. Regarding his property abroad, candidate answered directly, he doesn't have any. And you can find it in his written explanations as well. He said that at the moment he doesn't have any property abroad. Thank you. Alex, can we start voting? Yes, Bogdan.
Не хотів, але знову мене тривожить оцей родовий.
I didn't want to speak, but I'm concerned by the very radical position between the members of commission. That is the third time I'm saying that I was very attentive today. on the first candidate, on the second candidate. I can see that division very clearly. Plus, I asked before, dear members of the commission, if we discuss it secretly, that's one thing, but probably the thousands of people are listening to us. Do you think we can make that division in such a primitive way if the members of the commission from that side? You are not talking about integrity. For 2 times this remark was made. To say that, please remind yourself what is integrity. Unfortunately, there is no very clear definition of integrity. I understand it in my own way. That a psychological attitude of a person to the ethical order, to the legal order, so on and so forth, as there is no clear definition. If someone says something, it's not about integrity. Please listen to yourself, first of all. You can come home and listen to yourself. You cannot say that. You cannot show to the whole society that division between us. I was always voting for my internal assumptions. It doesn't matter as a NABU representative or some other guys. And you can say that it's such a nice way, so quietly, all this manner, but it's very obvious for the second time already. I can see that there is one team against another one on the second candidate already. That's not a fine manner to do that. For the second time, I tell you that. Please look at my voting and tell me that I was doing the same. No, I didn't. I do not name anyone, but please, let's agree. I think that he has a lot of positive moments, he has some experience, but also he has some disadvantages, and there are doubts on them. And that's why I will think about it and will take a corresponding decision, but I would like to ask us to get united. Thank you. Thank you very much, Bogdan. Let's start voting then. I agree that candidate Filonenko Taras Mikhailovich corresponds to the criteria of integrity according to the regulations of the Competition Commission. Show of hands, please.
Три голоси за.
3 votes for Dragakos, Koval, and Sobol. Decision is not taken. Mr. Kubida, how did you vote? 4. 4 votes then, plus Mr. Kubida. Decision not taken.
Taras Mikhailovich,
the decision on your correspondence to the criteria of integrity didn't get enough votes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for interview, and I wish you all the success in this election of the head, deputy head, and the head of the department. Bye-bye.
Шановні члени комісії, ми завершили сьогодні.
The members of the Competition Commission, we've exhausted today's agenda.
Драго. Ми можемо продовжувати засідання? Колеги.
Can we continue our meeting?
Колеги. Драго, у нас ще засідання.
Drago, meeting is still going on.
Він же ж не сказав, от бачите, я не розумію, він підключиться чи ні? Можете написати? У нас ще є питання порядку денного.
We have some other items on the agenda. Mr. Sobol. Mr. Sobol is just asking to start interviews at 5 p.m. as he will be giving diplomas. That's why I wanted to ask everyone if we can start later.
Чи буде кворум у нас, колеги?
Are we going to have quorum, colleagues?
Колеги, пан Соболь просить розпочати пізніше.
Mr. Sobol asked to start the commission later, if we can, at 5 p.m., because, as we will finish later. Is it possible? I don't understand, Will Drag.
Підтримую.
Богдан Васильович.
Я завжди як комісія, ви ж бачите знов прояв.
Ну, мені не зрозуміло така поведінка Драго, чи він
Ну я ж вам перед цим розказував.
просто покинув засідання.
Я так розумію, що вони подумали разом з паном Євгеном, що вже закінчилась співбесіда.
Ну, просто я дуже вас прошу, дивіться, поки ви не завершили розгляд питань і засідання, не робіть так, не залишайте комісію і не кажіть, що я там закінчив, завершив, чи
Пані Вікторія,
до
Драгон
побачення.
написав, що він може завтра. Я йому написав,
Да?
що він може на годину пізніше.
А Томас?
Я напишу в чаті і повідомлю попередньо на 16-ту, але може бути на 17-ту з урахуванням думки всіх. У нас ще було звернення журналіста «Київпост» Олега Сухова, але я не хочу зараз коментувати, розглядати, ми не можемо вже голосувати. Єдине, що хотіла би повідомити, є таке питання від журналиста. Могли бы вы прокомментировать утверждение, что Сымкива завитировали несправедливо без каких-то рациональных оснований? У комиссии был договорняк с Синюком. И третье обвинение Семака против комиссии с уважением Олег Сухов, журналист «Київпост». Я хочу просто журналісту відповісти публічно на засіданні комісії, що всі питання, які його цікавлять, вони були в трансляції YouTube і будуть в протоколах на сайті Офісу Генерального прокурора. А стосовно звинувачень Семака, він може звернутися до самого Семака для того, щоб він прокоментував. Ми всі наші рішення в протоколах. І рішення, яких прийнято комісія. Таким чином, колеги, засідання завершено. Ми голосувати не будемо. Я хотіла ще повідомити щодо позову Карєєва, але завтра повернемося до цього питання. Прошу завершити трансляцію. До побачення.
До побачення.
Я напишу тоді, колеги, завтра.